Good afternoon to you, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your Hurricane Pro and HD video blog for the 15th of June, 2016. I've been out of town for the last several days. Just got back in last night from Kansas, where we were testing some weather equipment that we will be using in upper atmospheric observation and eventual research in the eyes of hurricanes at landfall. And so now I'm back, so I figured I'd do a video blog to update you on where things are this week. We'll start with what we call the Tropical Cyclone Heat Potential, TCHP, right here. And basically, if it's in the upper part of the scale, that's a lot of extra octane energy in the water, so to speak. It's not just at the surface, the skin of the ocean. When we see high ocean heat content values, that means that the warm water extends down from the surface quite a ways, and thus there is a lot more energy available for something to come along, and it can churn that water up. If a track like this, for example, were to ensue at some point, you would have some very high heat potential here, moderate in the rest of the area, so to speak. And so you look for these things when and if something does develop. They don't necessarily contribute to the development, as the overall sea surface temperature pattern is going to be warm enough by August and September pretty much everywhere in the tropics and most of the subtropics that we monitor. It's these areas of extra high heat content, sort of these white zones, if you will. You can see them here at the upper end of the scale, and there's a couple of them in the northwest Caribbean and on the western side of the Florida Straits here off of Key West area to the north side of Cuba. But nothing to worry about to tap into that energy right now, just something interesting to watch, and we'll see how this expands over the coming months. And then we have the subsurface temperatures in the tropical Pacific. This will be the surface, and this is several hundred meters deep. And we do have this area of deep blue in some of the regions here, several gradations of blue, and that indicates colder than normal subsurface temperatures that are going to try to make their way up to the surface and then get pushed westward by the resumption of the trade winds, and that will help to foster this La Nina that is coming on, presumably, by later in the year. The upper level winds, not too favorable, but they are changing a little bit. This is the core of the westerlies up here for the most part, but we still have cyclonic flow and some stronger upper level winds cutting through this region. And we can actually see it better on this chart where the streamlines are added for us. This comes from the University of Wisconsin Cooperative Institute for Meteorological Satellite Studies. We appreciate that they do this. So we have a big upper ridge sitting over the southeast, very hot underneath that, deep layer ridge. So that's responsible for this very toasty pattern that we've had. But this isn't over the ocean. Instead, we have this counterclockwise flow here, and then again cyclonic to sinking motion flow with upper level winds abound in that region. But hey, you know what? Out here in the eastern Atlantic, not so much. The upper level winds calming down and a little bit more favorable, but it's dry out that way. Saharan air coming off Africa from time to time, and it's still June. We usually don't look that far east until August anyway. One area of interest, and it's very minor, down here in the extreme southern Bay of Campeche, a tropical wave coming through. Its energy might try to spawn something in this area, but if we look at the actual text, it doesn't look like it's going to be very likely due to the interaction with land, and therefore this only gets about a 10% shot at developing, so probably not going to have much come of it. In the eastern Pacific, pretty much the same song and dance here. Nothing has developed anywhere in this region. We have not had the first named storm yet. Had a tropical depression briefly down here in the Gulf of Tehuantepec, and that was it. And even this system here, only 50% chance of developing over the next 5 days. And the last sentence of the paragraph here in the tropical weather outlook, over the weekend, conditions should gradually become less conducive for tropical cyclone formation. So it doesn't look like we're going to see the first named storm in the North Pacific, East Pacific region anytime soon, which is pretty unusual. And that might mean that the Atlantic Basin will become quite busy later on. We'll have to see. It doesn't always have to be that way, but sometimes that's a clue. So we'll watch it. All right, well, that's it from me for the rest of the week. Nothing else really going on to talk about, so I'll be back on Monday. With that being said, have a great rest of your Wednesday. As always, thanks for tuning in. I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com and, of course, for Hurricane Pro and HD. And I'll talk to you again on Monday.